All right, guys, we're going live. Cole's having some technical challenges. Never come to this call and go on your phone. The last two guests have gone on their phone. It causes all sorts of problems. So if I ever give you the invitation to come on your computer. Anyways, guys, my name's Sumner Healy. Thank you for joining us here. We've got a really special call today. If we can get Cole to show up on here, I'm not quite sure what's going on his side, but Cole is one of the OG LIA members. Joined us back in September. So September 2022. At that time, that was actually when we had just kind of officially launched LIA. So up until that point, here we go. We got Cole in here. All right, Cole, can you hear us?
Yes, loud and clear.
All right, there we go. And now it looks like he's on his computer. Smart man. I was just giving you a bit of context into your origin story. So I had been coaching for a few years prior to that, all on a one-to-one basis. It's actually pretty funny. I would do these 4-week coaching increments where I would teach the modules live. I didn't record anything. I just taught for 4 weeks. It was a really funny idea. And Cole reached out right when we had rebranded to LIA. It was like the beginning of September, I believe, or maybe end of August, somewhere in that range. First quote unquote LIA member to sign up. He was running a landscaping business in Virginia and has gone from landscaper to land investor, which I think is a pretty cool origin story. So Cole, give the folks some details. Who are you? Where you're from? How long you been in land? All that good stuff.
Yeah, man. Can you hear me loud and clear right now?
Yeah, we got you.
Okay, cool. Yeah, basically, name's Cole Richardson. I live outside of Richmond, Virginia right now. That's going to change sometime soon. I've got some cool plans in the mix, but I basically went to trade school. Graduated high school 2018, already had 2 years of HVAC experience, got out of HVAC, quit the job. I was like, I want to go straight into real estate wholesaling. I want to make all this money. I'm telling all my friends, I'm like, I'm about to make my first 100,000, 200,000, just like that. Like, watch me. And, it just ended up being a lot harder than it seemed, per usual. That was my first legitimate business, LLC, that I created. Was wholesaling houses and all that stuff. Before that, I was just knocking on doors, selling candy in school, just similar stuff to Sumner probably, or most entrepreneurs are always doing a little something on the side, selling Beanie Babies, washing headlights, all that type of stuff. But yeah, so I did that. I realized that I didn't really have a marketing budget. I had some money saved up for my job, but when you go from making $14 an hour gross to being like, hey, spend $3,000 on skip tracing, buy this, this whatever property tour with a guru for $600 on a Saturday, all that stuff. I was like, damn, these are some big numbers. So basically what I did was I just went all over the place and I just started knocking on doors and I was cold calling people on a triple line dialer, and I got into texting, and on like my fourth text, someone was like, oh, you're violating the TCPA, we're going to sue you for 15 grand. And they didn't, but it scared me. So I stopped texting. So long story short, Sumner knows I don't make my long stories very short, but I'll do my best today. So I went from high school, working at a grocery store, doing little jobs on the side, picking up sticks, cutting grass, to quit my job of a year and a half. That was supposed to be like, when you're in it, that was me thinking like, this is my future. This is who I am. I'm an HVAC guy. It was like pretty much my whole identity at that point, because I like to do outdoor stuff, but I was like, this is like, everyone's telling me how this is such a great career path and all that stuff. So I got out of that. I think I made like 16 grand wholesaling houses over the course of a year and a half. I didn't use any money for marketing, really. All the money that I spent on marketing and door knocking on thousands of doors, I pretty much was like wasting that. And it did give me a lot of expertise. I learned a lot. I learned how to not just pretty much just be like a salesperson and just a man in general. You're going up to random person's door and you have to hold a conversation. And before that, I was used to just like being a day laborer pretty much that doesn't communicate with anyone at all. So going from that to the complete opposite of like having high level conversations about real estate was like a complete 180-degree turn. I was doing like junk removal and stuff for hoarder houses. In between that, pretty much people were like, hey, I don't want to sell my house when I knock on their door. I'm like, well, I see you have all these leaves here. So like, how about that? Like, I can help you. And they're like, do you need a rake? I was like, what do you mean? No, I have a landscaping company. And they're like, oh, because I pulled up in a Ford Taurus, and they like, no one was really taking me seriously. I pulled up in a Ford Taurus with a blue polo shirt on, and I'm wearing like little dress shoes. And then all of a sudden I just like flip it around like, oh, you don't want to sell. And then it's, $300 leaf cleanup. And I just like change in the back and, get like I think I started out, I didn't even have a leaf blower. I had a rake and a tarp, or no, it wasn't even a tarp. It was my dad's quilt. that he used for yard work, because he was pretty cheap as well. I was the one that ended up buying all the equipment, just take care of the family house as well. So I would pull out there with the tarp, and I think that first job, it took me 19 hours to do the leaves. I can do it next time after I got the right equipment. I did it like 2.5. So 19 hours of just like raking. So that was like the most labor ever. You really feel it. Yes, and I just built upon that landscaping business for, I think this is my third and a half year. Got out of cutting grass. That was like a big thing. And it's just been progressing from there. So I did more project-based stuff. I'm like, okay, now I can make, $3,000 at a time instead of doing like a quick $50 grass cut. And I was like, oh, do I want to get into pools and hardscaping? And I met some guys out in Nantucket and California, and all these people doing like $300,000 projects. And then I realized that's not the way I want to go. I was like, hey guys, what do I need to do to be able to like travel and see new things and da da da? And they were like, if you want to do that as a landscaper, you need to make a corporation. And I was like, well, I don't want to be a corporation. And what that meant by that is like having like people for your payroll and your taxes and all these employees and 20 employees, and you got to have this person, that person. I was like, this is like a very money intensive business. It was like you're spending like crazy amounts. And I think land investing is a very lean business. So basically I realized that something needed to change. And this is a cool story that Sumner just touched on real quick before. I'm sitting there, I'm like, okay, I'm making money more than before. I'm paying my bills, but I want to do something next. Like basically when I first started, I'm living with my parents, and because I was like, hey, whatever, I don't know, it was like, if I want to park my dump truck and like have all this equipment and all this other stuff, and the nursery and the garden in the backyard, like I need to rent a business space for however, $1,000, $1,200, 15, whatever it is. And then I also need a place to live, and that's going to be like another, $1,500. So I'm like, basically as a single landscaper, I would bring in people for like what do you call, not day laborers, but like a temp agency that would bring me some guys to take care of bigger projects, or I would partner up with a bigger company. I'm always like collaboration over competition. So if I don't know how to do a patio, right, and someone's like, hey, I need a pool put in or a patio, I'm like, oh great, let me call my patio guy, and we would divvy up the job that way and get it done. And these guys have all the expertise and skills, and I would learn and get paid at the same time. As I digress, I realized that I was just like, if I actually do this on my own and just do it like the right way, obviously I'm have insurance and taxes and all that stuff. But if I have like a pretty much a space that I rent for my business and then also a place to live, I'm like, there's really no money in this unless I scale up and have all these employees. So I'm sitting at home and I'm banging my head against the wall. I'm like, what do I do? I need to start a new business. Like, this is crazy. Like, I'm busting my ass every day, like working 75 days straight from sun up to sundown, just seeing like what I'm capable of. And it wasn't a business that works if I were to do it out, and have like an office and all that stuff. So I was like, I need to do something different. So basically I was calling real estate agents out in rural West Virginia. And I was like, hey, what do your clients do for work? I want to do what they do. I want to start that business. I want to get into that industry, because they live in the middle of nowhere. There's beautiful mountains, there's rivers and lakes and all that stuff. And then no one was really giving me like any good advice. And then all of a sudden I see I'm like, let me talk to a young guy, right? Someone who looks like more approachable and might be on the same level. And then I see Sumner's picture on there. And I was like, that was the guy from the Instagram ad. And or it wasn't even an ad. It was just like in my Explore page, because I had seen Sumner's video literally like 2-3 hours before. And he's talking about, oh, like, is it being all humble? He's like, oh, do I think land investing is a good business to get into? He's like, it might be, I'm making a lot of money, but there's some like challenges, just like anything. So I see that a couple hours previous. I'm like, okay, dude's in the tank top. He's all, jacked. He's walking around. He's like, yeah, all right. And then I swear I'm like having a quarter life crisis. And I was like, I need to do something. I'm working so hard, but I'm just spinning my wheels. At the end of the year, it's like, oh, that was a big gross number. But after you pay for all the materials and the supplies and this and that, I'm like, if I go out and, live on my own, what was that? I was like 21, 22. I was like, I'm just going to be like everybody else. I'm going to be broke. I'm going to be struggling. I'm going to have to, have like either debt or like all this stuff. And I'm just not going to get anywhere. And then my business won't grow. So I started calling the real estate agents, and I see Sumner's. I'm like, dude, that's the dude from the video. So I DM'd him, and I was like, like I pretty much was like, I didn't know that you had already coached people. I thought you were a little bit smaller than you were. And I was just like, hey, I'm going to be like your next success story. Like, let me, like, I want to work alongside you, show me how to do everything. And then we can do like a testimonial and I'll like make you look really good. And, you know, it'll just be like 0 to 100 type of thing. And you're like, hey, man, you know, I appreciate that. Da, 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 da. I actually, I'm kind of like running a business. Like, I'm past that, but I am opening up coaching in like next month. And I was like, I'll pay you right now. You're like, okay, do you want to pay it like next month? I was like, I'll pay you right now. Like, get me in there. And from there, it's been all a step in the right direction. And it's, you know, obviously not easy, but my life has improved like tenfold every time I take like a risk or something's uncertain. I kind of just calculate it, but just generally to make it all consolidated, just, yeah, my life's gotten way better. And I am sitting at the park right now working. You know, it's great. I have no shoes on and I can do it from a computer and my phone. And I'm actually about to go, and I can touch on this later, but there's a couple like landscaping jobs that I'm just tailing off, and I'm just sending all my work to the other guys that I know in the industry. And I'm just like full time in land investing after, like, you know, next week's jobs. I've been really, really tapering it off the past couple months, you know, some jobs here and there. But if I'm going to be paying all this overhead for the land business, you know, whether that's marketing or data and like all this stuff, I'm like, I need to actually be utilizing that for that business. So I'm planning on going out to the mountains of West Virginia this winter on a 200-acre farm and putting a teepee up with a wood stove, and I want to test out working from there with the Starlink. And I might go full nomadic and go in the truck camper. You know, I've got the truck right there. I might put a camper on the back of that and just like take it out to Florida. I don't know, but I'm been talking with the landowner, my buddy's ranch, about doing the teepee stove and the Starlink and all that fun stuff. And yeah, so I would not be able to do that as a landscaper. And
Yeah,
before
man.
the one last thing I want to say about all that is I was so desperate to figure out something new. I was literally going out to, like, you see those people on YouTube. I just never recorded it. I was like going up to these like farmhouses in the middle of nowhere where they're probably going to shoot you. And I'm like, what do people do for work? I was like, I want to be out here. It's so beautiful. Like, what do you do? Are you retired? Are you an attorney? And like, you know, there's only like a handful of things that people do unless they're like remote workers. So I just really needed a change. And I really think it was like a gift from the heaven above that I was like, what I do, like, show me a sign. And then I see freaking Sumner's face on there, the dude from the video. And I called him. I was like, this is crazy. Like, you know, it's very clear that that was the right answer for me. And like, this
Yeah.
isn't like some hyped up stuff. That's like, that's what
Yeah.
happened.
Yeah. That's a heck of a story. I swear I didn't I didn't pay Cole to say all that. It is an amazing, amazing story. I think frankly, when you're walking the right path, serendipity takes over. Just little unexplainable things that show up at the right time, at the right place. And it's so cool, man. It's funny. So Cole and I actually met. We did like a little LIA meetup in San Diego in July. Cole was voted the most interesting man of the event. Everyone left like, damn, Cole's passionate as hell. And I remember you telling me that story about seeing the listing on land.com. So Cole, if you guys don't know him, Cole is one of those guys that really lives the land life, like the idea of living and homesteading, living off grid and having his own animals and cultivating food. Like that is the vision. That is the dream. And the guy's been hooked on West Virginia land. So he caught us at the right time when we were selling a bunch of West Virginia properties, and it just clicked. And what's cool is Cole has literally been in some ways, the guinea pig of LIA. I mean, he stepped in and like, you know, beta 0.1 and on and on and on again throughout all the iterations. So it's been really, really cool, to see your journey, but also just to have you with us. And you're one of the folks that, you know, has been there from the beginning, and you're still here in the group. You're coming out to our Las Vegas event in 2 weeks, which is going to be awesome. Talk to me about your experience, because you're an interesting cat for many, many reasons. And people inside the chat are saying that they love your passion, and I would agree. I also love the fact that you are actually passionate about land ownership for yourself, right? So there's not very many land investors that feel that same way. I think I'm one of the few that also agrees with you on that. So talk to me about what was the vision to get into land? It sounds like working remote, maybe finding your own property, but what was like the ultimate vision for this business?
Yeah, basically just wanting to have like both location and financial independence. You can go out to the middle of nowhere, and there's different degrees of it. And I'm like, I learned this. I met Ty Lopez the other day, and he was telling me about like reading people and how you have different levels of testosterone, dopamine, serotonin, and oxytocin in your body. And based off of those levels, like taking his test, that's pretty much your personality. There's like the different chemicals. Like you're either a risk taker or you're like a numbers person. It sounds kind of like surface level, but the way he did it was like insane.
You know
It
what's
was like
funny? That I just went through that exercise with him 2 weeks ago here in Las Vegas. Same thing. I remember that.
yeah. No, he nailed it. And there was like, I think 40 people that all
Yeah.
took it live. And there was only like 2 people who said that this doesn't make sense. And he broke it down. And like, I think my top one was like, I'm still like a high cortisol person. So that's why I guess like I'm with the homesteaders or whatever, canning food and, planting fruit trees. And like, I've been this way since I was little. I'd always be like, I think it was crazy when people's phones were dead. I would just be like, what do you mean you didn't charge your phone? Like, what if the power goes out? Like, then you're going to wish you charged your phone. Like, in the back of my truck, I literally have a propane camping grill. And this is my work truck. I have a propane camping grill. I have like 14 gallons of water. I've got like Band-Aids with like rubbing alcohol, hydrogen peroxide. I bring like winter hats with me and wool socks in the back seats just in case I somehow end up in Colorado in the summer. Like, I can pretty much live out of the thing. And that's just in town. So I'm a very like kind of a prepared-minded person. And that's kind of going off track. But basically that and land ownership makes sense because there's a lot of people, a lot of my buyers are like, hey, I want to buy this property and put a water wheel to create power. There's a lot of uncertainty into the world. And I also agree with the statement just leading with faith over fear. So there's a way to get like too crazy with it to where like, you're like, everything's going wild. But to some degree, and also Ty was talking about this, is it makes sense. You can travel the world, you can have a business, this and that, but have yourself a home base where you have a bunch of fat stored and you've got some, some rice and beans, and you just got like a cool place to, no matter what happens, that's like your sanctuary, whether it's like you're doing business like 10 rentals or you have it as people come over and they do yoga with you or meditate. Like my goal is just to have a place to really create, and I guess like community is always just like commune stuff, but I just want to have a place, a piece of land where there's abundance everywhere. Right. So I want to have financial abundance. I don't want to be worrying about living in the middle of nowhere and getting, welfare and working for, Dollar General and all that. That's no way to live. But you can go to some of those places and work remotely. And a lot of them don't have like zoning restrictions. You can really do what you want. So that's a big like push for me. So I'm money motivated, but I'm also freedom motivated. And I also want to move around. So, after I get my piece of land, I want to kind of travel and maybe go to Florida for the winter and just keep making money that way. But everyone around us, and at least that I see in the world, pretty much, unless you're in like Sumner's direct circle, most people are very isolated. They're unhappy, and there's just a complete lack of community. So I have that from a business standpoint with like the LIA group, but I also want to feel that on like a personal level. I want to invite people that I meet like on my travels. Hey, come over. We're going to have a bonfire. We're going to can some stew and eat homemade apple butter. Come over here and pick some peaches. Let's walk around with no shoes on and then talk business. So I just want to create like a paradise, a sanctuary, whatever you want to call it. I want to do that on my land and just like meet people. I started a YouTube channel, TikTok and Instagram, all that. It's Barefoot Appalachia, and like a month ago. And I'm really just trying to get the word out and just take videos and all this stuff of my travels and document it, because I've done it for a long time without really recording it or putting it online. But I figured if the more people who know who you are, the more opportunities that present themselves to you, whether that's, hey, they want to buy land from me, or maybe want to work together on a business, or they have an apple tree variety that I don't have and we trade. Like whatever that is, I just want to get out there because you're doing it. You're very smart for that. So that's kind of that's my goal. That's my
Love
plan.
it, man. Well, you're getting lots of love in the comments, man. People love your energy. So you got to get out there more and share your thoughts and your views on the world. It's interesting. I never really talk about this that much, but part of the reason that I think that the land business has really resonated with me is because I grew exactly what you're talking about is how I grew up. I essentially grew up in a commune in Big Sur. I was conceived in a teepee, maybe TMI, and grew all of our own food. We milked our goats. Like it was just all insulated. The land was abundant. And for me growing up, that was the highest form of wealth. That was, you made it. If you can sustain you and your family's life off the property that you live on, and I still think that is the form of like the highest level of abundance. And so to be able to provide that to other people is pretty exhilarating to me. Like, and like the properties that we sell, this rural recreational stuff, this is what these folks are doing, right? Some of it's going to be a recreational use case, but a lot of them is this long-term vision of homesteading. And you can have that for yourself. In the last 12 months, we've had 200 people go through LIA. We've probably had, 600 phone calls with prospective LIA members. And the number one theme, the most common thing that we hear from people is, yeah, money's important, but it's the freedom. It's the autonomy to live life on your own terms. And if you got Starlink, you can do it from anywhere. One of our coaches, Rylan, he was out in Mount Shasta camping for 3 weeks with his mom. His mom actually works in his business. He hired his mom, which is dope. They got Starlink set up. They're at friggin' Lake Shasta closing deals. It's pretty damn cool. If you've got internet, you can really run this business from anywhere. So talk to me about your experience going through LIA. And this is not a knock against you, but I think this is a fair point for anyone here in the audience. You're not a data nut. Like going through spreadsheets is not what you qualify as fun. Probably not your strong suit either, yet you've made the business work. So talk to me about that journey and that experience.
Yeah, I think everything in life is kind of just like checks and balances or pluses and minuses. And I think about how, like, when I was working in HVAC, I was like, I never want to be at a desk. I never want to be at a computer. Um, like that's for nerds. Like that's for office people, 9 to 5. And there's different levels to that. And then I realized, hey, I have no money. You know, the company I'm working for is having me inhale a bunch of asbestos and not tell me about it. You know, the guy I'm working with is purposely messing everything up so that he can get extra hours, but I'm stuck with him until 1 a.m. in some random town 3 hours away. So I'm like, okay, maybe I should do something different. Then I was like, I changed it from employee to business owner. My life got better. And then I realized, hey, now my life is better. I have more money, but I have to stay here. If I want to go hiking, you know, I have to like cram all these jobs and bring in some employees and get everything done. And then just like get back as soon as I can and worry about the phone ringing. Like, okay, what's the next step? Then the next step is financial and like geography independence. So that's what I'm doing now. So while I would not identify myself as someone who loves Excel spreadsheets, I realized that the juice is worth the squeeze, and that trade-off for me, staring at a computer, it's not like if you're working in an office where there's fluorescent lighting and everyone's talking about, oh, 1 day closer to Friday, you know, I can't believe it's not the way. Did you hear about this and that? Oh my gosh, Jamie, she drank 3 cups of coffee. That girl's having way too much now. Like, I can't believe that. I can't believe Jimmy's wife got pregnant. She took off work. My wife, we got a babysit. Like, I don't want to hear that. It is so dumb. It's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Like, it's so depressing. It brings you down. And I always got told, oh, well, you know, you're always going to be around people you don't like. There's always going to be, asses that you work with. You just got to deal with it and toughen up. And I did that, and it did not work for me. I would rather be around people that, and the biggest thing from going from that environment to being self-employed is now people look at you as like, hey, let's work together. Let's collaborate. Let's share some ideas because you're going to make money and I'm going to make money as well, instead of like kind of crabs in a barrel, everybody bringing you down. So yes, now I am working on the computer, but I'm also doing it under a tree with no shoes on, and I feel good. You know what I'm saying? So I can make that happen because I'm in a better environment. I can look out. It's a pretty view. I feel I'm literally grounded, but like I also feel grounded. It helps me make better business decisions. But yeah, data is not my strong suit. Looking at numbers, it kind of drives me crazy if I'm sitting in a room with like no, like just darkness and weird stuff. So I do it in a natural area and it works for me. So that's why I want to work, you know, and have the homestead so I can sit on the back porch, have like shade above me. So it's not really hot on the computer in the summertime. And in between calls, I can go jump in the river real quick, refresh myself, eat an apple that I just grew, and then get back to it. So yes. And then also the land, all the software, since the business is getting kind of more efficient. The software that you have for picking the market selection, and now people are kind of catching on to the business. There's more out there, and that took a big load off of my shoulders. So now I'm focused more on just getting enough data out there and getting more calls in. And I'm like, if it's too loud, I'll go into my truck real quick.
Okay.
So I went from just trying to pick markets, and I was like, why is every sell-through rate like 6? You know, and then you realize that I was like, each state might only have a handful of really good counties, and I was just somehow finding all the like mid ones. But now that I can see it on a map through your software, it's like, damn, this is crazy. This is a lot better. Now I can worry about just getting the sales pipeline and tweaking my copywriting and all that stuff. So I went from not loving data to now it's like a lot easier, and I just have like different hurdles to get over, which I'm fine with because my life is still better than it was before.
Yeah, man, I'm not a tech guy either. If it was up to me, I would delegate ever using a computer or a phone. But I'm obsessed with the concept of leverage, because with leverage, we can create freedom and we can have like a force multiplier. I look at the 2 easiest ways to add leverage to your life or to a business is delegation and some kind of automation or computers, whatever it may be. So it's just kind of a necessary evil, right? But like what you can get done, the fact that you can do it from anywhere is pretty damn cool. And then when you start stacking teams on top of that can start doing the stuff on your behalf, sending out the mail on your behalf, talking to sellers on your behalf, so when things start to get really, really cool. One of the questions inside the chat was, what was your typical budget on mailers and how many were you sending per month? So you want to talk about what you put forth into the business so far?
Right. I think before I counted this out, it was a real jump. I think before I made $1, I I think I might have spent like 22,000, and then it all started paying off because the one deal ended up, taking home like 90 grand, which was like the big one. You know what
Crazy.
I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I'd have to look at my numbers, but I think you told me 10 grand was like,
Yeah.
hey, you need 10 grand to get into this business. And then I know people, I think like Preston and some other guys who spent less than that, and they started getting deals and got momentum. For me, I was, a couple months in, maybe a month or two, whatever it was. I think I started marketing in November, and then like late winter or spring is when I closed my first mini deal, and then I got the big deal, and on and so forth. But I think I did spend about 22,000
Okay.
before I got anything back, and I was kind of just like, man, this is wild. I need that money to kind of circle back and recycle it. And I found this one market where like things weren't working, and I was talking with you, and I was like, something's got to change. And then there was this one, I was like, and I think I was like copying, yours or Michael Bull's market, and like, cause I was like in survival mode. I was, instead of like abundance, it was a scarcity mindset where I was like, all right, well, my brain's not working. And then you would
Yeah.
post, I think you stopped doing that. You'd be like, hey, I bought this for this and I sold it for this. And I like did the math and broke it down. I was like, I'm going to mail it. I just need some money. I don't care if it's 3 grand. I just need something. I'll put it back in the business. I'm tired of this crap. And then
Yeah.
it like didn't work. And then, we talked about that. I was like, hey, Cole, probably not a great idea. You need to like spread your wings. And I did. And I took
Yeah.
a chance. And the next market that I picked was just like, I wasn't sure. I was like, okay, let me just see what happens. And I'm like laying in my girlfriend at the time, like on her floor. And I was like, this has to work. This has to work. I need this to work. And you also talked about, hey, you want to be able to like keep some income or savings. So you're not like, hey, this is the Hail Mary. This has to
Yep.
work. You want to kind of just test and trial and error. And that's a better way to do it, which is what I'm doing now. Life is better. But that one ended up, the Hail Mary worked. And I talked with a really cool seller. He was pretty savvy. That's why we could kind of work together and structure the deal differently. And but yeah, I think to answer that guy's question, I did spend like 22,000 up front,
Okay.
and maybe that's not typical because I know guys who spent way less and got deals faster. And yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's definitely outside the norm. But this is something that we got to keep as a reminder. You came in kind of a step below for being a data guy, being a numbers guy. This is how it usually works. If you come into this business and you're data centric, you'll probably get a deal a little bit faster than some folks. There's a lot of folks in here that aren't data centric that are really good at sales, though. So it's like they might get a deal 4 or 6 months in, but they're going to start getting really good deals because they can work them and negotiate them. The data guys, some of them just pick up in their first deals in 60 days, 90 days. Like Rylan, who's very much a data guy. When he joined us, I think he got his first deal in like 30 days or something like that. That deal made him like 15 or 16 grand. So different strokes, different folks. It took me 8 months to get my first deal. 8 months, bro, bashing my head against my computer. And what I noticed too, seems to be a commonality in life. When your faith is running the lowest, when you're hanging on by a hair, it's like life is testing you. And boom, just like that, it always shows up. You just got to stay in the game. That's why I get so angry when I see people that are teetering. I'm like, MFer, don't you dare teeter. I've been there. I know what it's like. I've seen this happen time and time again. Just keep that faith and it will come back around. Sometimes it's really fast. Sometimes it's a little bit longer. Part of the other thing is like direct mail is that there's a timing component. We have folks that their first campaign makes them 100 grand. It's like, did we really do anything special there? No, they might have just hit the right market at the right time. It very much is a numbers game in this business, and that can be frustrating to people that really want certainty. What I always tell people is if you stick around in this business long enough and you emulate, I can guarantee you'll be successful. It's just it's the time component. It's more of like a when will it happen, not if it will happen, right? So 22K is definitely out of the norm, but look at where you are at now, right? Like that was that little point of a dip in faith was certainly worth it. Just to go back to the marketing question, how much mail are you sending out now roughly per month?
So I'm upping it from before. My baseline before was like when I first started was 4,000 a month. Then I upped it to 5, and now I'm on track to do 10,000 a month. But when I did the average over, part of the year, there was like a couple months in the summer where I like did not send out mail because I was like, my last couple mailers bombed, and also my landscaping business is going crazy, and I was just stuck in the weeds. Now I'm out of that, and I'm back on track, getting things going. But the next couple months, I'm going to be sending out 10,000 mailers a month instead of
Okay,
4 or 5,
cool.
just because I need to do a lot more. And obviously, I'm going to be in the group trying to dial everything in because I'm not a pro. I've made money, I've learned a lot, but I am like so like there's so many people in there who are just like dialed in. They're like, oh, I'm doing this subdivision, that subdivision. Every dollar spent is this much back, and it's just like a
Yeah,
machine. Me, it's very lumpy. I'm learning. I'm making mistakes, but it's still working out overall. But I still have the like kind of the uncertainty and the just like I need to dial things in so it can be an actual business instead of just like a gamble's not the right word because I know it's going to pay off after I do some stuff. But I have had some not very successful mailers the past few months. But so I'm putting in texting so I can get a quicker response and to dial in pricing quicker and then maybe mail afterwards. So I know it's going to work out, but it still doesn't feel like a well-oiled machine right now.
Dude, it took me 2 years to feel like I had anything that even resembled a well-oiled machine. I think that like I came into this business with zero like gifts that were relevant. Like I didn't really have any skills that were really transferable. At least I don't think. But what I did have was I just threw immense amount of stuff at the walls. I was just looking for something to stick. But I had the first year was real lumpy, and I had a lot of deals that like if someone in the LIA group got this, they would probably be miserable for a week thinking about how bad it was. This deal where I'm like, I'm gonna make 10 grand. And then I find out it's landlocked and I make $100 or I lose money on it. For like, I made every mistake in the book, but I took so much action. The amount of feedback I got was immense. That's a cool thing about being in a coaching program. That was like the feedback loop doesn't have to be the market. It can be the education or the review of someone else to hopefully avoid some of that stuff. I know everyone here probably wants to hear your crazy battle story of one of the most insane first deals I've ever heard of. So would you mind sharing with the group what went down this $500,000 double closed subdivide in Texas?
Yeah. I mean, actually, the sale price out of all those lots, it was a little bit over 800 grand. It was a buy for 560, and sell for it was a little bit over 800 because they're selling for 10,000 per acre, buying for 72.50 per acre, and then the last lot we sold for like 11 or 12,000. But long story short, this was that one market that I was like, hey, I don't know if this is going to work. The data, the sell-through rate's not really high, but I can just tell based off of like the surrounding cities that like there's going to be something happening here. It's just a gut instinct, and I was sending out texts and I was doing it really late. I think it was like you can only do it till like 8 p.m. And I was just like, dang, the mailer hasn't really been working. So let me just get on this website and just start doing text. And it was like right at the cutoff. I think you can only do it till 8:30. And then the guy responded at like I think it was 11 p.m. And I was just like, hey, this is Cole. Do you have any land for sale between like 5 and 6 or 7,000 per acre? And the guy was like, he was like, show me the money with like a bunch of emojis. And usually people that do stuff like that, if they want to sell, they'll be like, yes, I want to sell. Or if they don't, they're like, screw up. So I thought him being like, show me the money I was like, oh, haha. And then I was like, wait, do you actually want to sell? Like I texted him back later. I was just like, wait, if you actually want to sell, let's have a conversation. And he was like, yeah, show me the money. And then like we got on the phone and he's just like, hey, I'm an investor myself. I work in like nuclear gas and oil or something. It's like some blue collar thing where they do it in the middle of the desert or the mountains and stuff. It wasn't pipeliner, but I think he's like a nuclear controls guy. Anyways, he was like, I want to sell. He's from Louisiana. He said, I want to sell this land, but I do not want to go back to Texas. He's like, it's so far from my house. I'm building a house. I got cedar trees, brother. Check out this picture. He sent me pictures of like all the trees he cut down. He's like, and then the beetles came in. So what I do, I had to treat that thing right there. We put the walls up. I hired some guys. And he's telling me all this stuff. I'm like, all right, let's get down to the best next. And so basically, he was a very guy. He was during all the closing table stuff. He was like sending me pictures of his fish. He would go like ghost. It was like, hey man, we need you to like the notary's at your house because you said. And then he's like, oh man, I was offshore fishing trip. I got that check from the first lot, and man, I didn't have any service. We were like 5 miles off the coast, brother. But check this out. I don't know if it was a tuna. He's like, I got this big old tuna. Yeah, swamp creature right there, buddy. And I'm like, cool. Can you sign the papers, man? We're kind of like, this is crazy. So that was like kind of going into it. But at the beginning of it, basically, he was like, hey, what can you give me? I was like, we can give you this price. And he was like, well, can you give me more? And I was like, no, because we're using a funding company and they need us to be at, kind of this price. They want some equity in the deal to know it's a good thing and to kind of secure everything. And he was like, well, why do you need a funding company? I was like, because we got to buy it. He said, well, why are you going to buy it for me and then hold it and then subdivide and then resell it? Why don't you just kind of just do it one by one? I was like, man, that's a good idea. And I was like, all right, well, we won't use the funding company. How about, and so basically before I got any of these ideas, I was talking with him and I texted in the group. It was like 11:30 East Coast. I was like, hey, is anybody up? This guy has 80 acres. I think we can divide it. I don't know what to do. And within like 30 seconds, Mayor from the group was like, I got you. We get on the phone. And then he I don't know if it was a group call or we talked about it, but then we kept talking. That's how the deal progressed. So basically, I was like, we have something here. What do I do? I was like, and usually I want like speed so we can kind of keep the momentum. And it was like 30 seconds. It was definitely less than a minute. And he was like, let's work on this. So then that's how I got my expertise. I'd done houses before. And I think I'd done one really small piece of land in West Virginia that they didn't want to fund it. So I bought it in my personal name or my company name. And then the attorney went on vacation for a month in Puerto Rico. And they're like, hey, just wire us the money. And I think, I don't know if that was part of the 22 grand. I don't think it was. It wasn't expensive. But anyways, he's like, wire us the money. We'll hold it in escrow for a month. And then when he gets back, we'll close it. And I was like, y'all must be crazy that you're trying to tell me to do. But I did. And I think it was like, I don't know. I was like, okay. So basically a month later, there was like $3,000 profit. And then this was the second deal. I'll stay on track, I promise. Basically, it was 80 acres. The guy was like, don't get a funding company. Just pretty much just pay me as each lot sells. So Mayor was helping us. We structured it. We found out the comps. We're like, all right, this is going to work. But there was really no comps in the immediate area. We ended up creating like 7 or 8 comps and like changed the market. It was pretty great. We negotiated on price. He was wishy-washy. He was very like kind of hard to pin down. I remember I'd be doing like a leaf cleanup and trying to negotiate. I turned the leaf blowers off and I would just like be in the backyard. And then he's like, I don't know, we're 6,500 per acre. I think I can get a little more. Da, 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 da. And then we settled on the higher price. And then he was like, all right. And then he would just like go ghost. I was like, man, we can't like pin him down. We need to do something. So then I was like, Mayor, I know that we're JVing, but I think I need you on the phone because you know what you're talking about. And if I screwed this up, it's like we won't have any more deal after this. So like, yeah, you just like pick up some of my slack. And then he's like, hey man, what's up? And he's like, I don't know about this. He's like, okay, we'll Venmo you $1,000 right now. He's like, how do we know you're serious? He was like, we'll Venmo you $1,000. And he was like, all right, that sounds good. And I was like, all right, well, if you sign this agreement here, we'll Venmo you right now, like outside of escrow and all that stuff. We're like, we'll send it to you. And we did. And then the signature came back, and I'm like in this dude's backyard, like, yeah, I'm like jumping around. I'm like, let's go. I was like, this is so crazy. Like, we're rich boys. Like, we got him. Like, not we got him because obviously, like, we're both. He was happy to work with us. I was like, we got this thing down, boy. Like, this is wild. And then I would just like go back to like blowing the acorns. Like, I ain't gonna be doing this for long, boy. Like, let's go. And yeah, it was wild. It was wild. And then it was like all these ups and downs. We ended up doing so without all the fluff and extra words and stuff, we ended up getting it for 7,500 per acre, even numbers. Retail was 10,000 per acre. We said that we're doing a double close, so it was pass-through funding, so we did not have to bring money to wire to the closing table. And we got the first lot. The guy wanted 25 acres. We pretty much had it listed as like however much you want, as long as it's 10 acres, we'll get it to you. So we got 80. You want to buy 20? They said, all right, let's buy 20. Then they added on 25. So we basically got us because it was in Texas. So we had the 10-acre exemption to where you didn't need to do a whole lot if it's 10 acres. And the guy got 25. We basically took it to the closing table, took his offer, and then we bought that 25 acres from the seller and then sold it in the same day. And we got the survey, buyer paid the survey to create that actual lot. Easier said than done because we went through 5 or 6 title companies. Because this seems like, streamlined. Everyone is like, like wholesaling or land invest is so easy. You just buy low, sell high. Like, it's a very simple concept, simple but not easy. Basically, it was the day before closing. This was the first lot. The first one's always the hardest because you got to get all your people dialed in. We got the drone pictures. The pictures were taken during like a kind of a rainy day. It wasn't super pretty, so we made the leaves look a little bit better. And it was like 2 days before closing, and the title company was like, hey, like we don't want to do this deal. Like, we don't work here or something like that. And then it was like this whole thing. Another 2 weeks happened. 2 days before closing, and I'm just going to skip all this stuff, but basically there was some of the title companies were like right before closing, they were like, hey, where do you want to wire the money to? And we were like, wire what? We're doing pass-through funding, double close. meaning the buyer's money is going to pay for this and pass through, gets dispersed out. And they were like, oh, that's crazy. We don't actually do that. And I was like, oh, that's crazy because you said you did. Here's the email because we just had this same problem with the other people. So like it was like one or two people just backed out last minute. I mean like day or so before closing. So then like I think it was the third one. They said they could do it, and they were like, hey, we need the money. And they're like, we're not going to do this if we don't have this like 225 grand. And we're like, they're like, we need it wired by like tomorrow. And then like Mayor comes in clutch. People are like, oh, I'm losing all this money JV. And they have like this, I need to keep the whole, I think Max Maxwell from Wholesale Houses, he said, I'd rather have half of a watermelon than all of a grape.
Yep.
And I think that's how I look at it. You just got to be able to break bread and work with other people. And it was worth every penny because Mayor saved the deal like a million times. It was crazy. The dude's he's an interesting fellow. He's really good. So he like called some of his boys and was like, hey, we need this money, da da da. And then next thing you know, he's got the 200 grand wired, 220, whatever, wired like the next day in the morning. And then, but here's the thing, it ended up being a like a Friday or something crazy like that. And then they were like, oh, the surveyor surveyed the wrong piece of land. So we got to delay it. And we were paying, like, this was transactional funding. We were paying interest by the day.
Yeah.
And then it went through the whole weekend into the next week. Then we had to wait for the survey. So we were like paying, like, it was absurd. It was like, what is going on here? And it gets better. Trust me. That happens in like later in the next week. We basically are like ready to close and all this type of stuff. And I don't remember if it was this lot or the second lot, but so we've already had issues with the title companies backing out and the not doing pass-through funding and not doing the double close. And we finally get the money in, and then the survey's delayed, or they do the wrong one, and then it gets delayed even more. So then it finally, on like the last day, we go to do all this stuff, and I'm kind of losing train of thought because there's people walking around. And what did they do? I think we closed that one. Anyways, and we like finally get it in. I really lost my train of thought. There was so much crazy stuff happening to where it was just like it didn't even make sense. And then we go to the next lot, for example, and then they were like, hey, we don't work in this county. This is like the one county that we don't work in. We work in literally every other county in Texas, but this one like does some weird thing where they take like a percentage of the escrow money to like fund like some crazy stuff. And it just really was. Okay, sorry. So yeah, it was all that stuff going on, jumbled around. Either the first or the second lot when we're still getting everything dialed in. We finally got the seller nailed down from being on fishing trips and working all around and all that crazy stuff. And they send him the paperwork. He's doing the notary. And he calls me at night, sitting in the kitchen on the counter. He said, Cole, I don't know what's going on, but they sent me 50 pages of some random person's paperwork. And I was like, what are you talking about, man? Like, he's like, I'm done. We're out of this. I'm backing out of the deal. They're trying to scam me, all these professional, all these yuppies in here doing paperwork, crunching numbers. He's like, they're sending me some other person's mortgage documents telling me to sign them and approve them and, pay all these property taxes for this guy named Gerald. And I was like, he's like, I'm done. Hangs up the phone. I'm hitting my head on the counter. I swear. I was like, no, this is crazy. It was like the most roller coaster thing ever. And it was like we just went through surveys, not double closing, a couple title companies, and somehow we get to like the sixth one. And then I think we use that same one for like the other 7 or 8 lots. So this, I believe, was all for the first one. And then he's like, I'm going to back out. And I was like, no, like we will figure this out. And that's what I learned from Mayor. It was just like there's always like something that just needs to be explained. Because at first I was with him. I was like, that's crazy. They did that. I can't believe it, man. I agree with you. But then Mayor would be on the phone like, oh yeah, like there's probably like some logical explanation. We'll figure that out real quick. So basically they wanted him to, they sent him the wrong paperwork. We literally got him. He was driving. One of his family members got sick in Colorado, and he drove from like Louisiana to Colorado overnight to go see him in the hospital because they had cancer. And we like had the notary. We're trying to get him to meet at a truck stop. And I'm not making this up. It was like the crazy. Every single thing was like, it was like trying to like work through molasses. It was insane. And we finally tried to get him to meet at the truck stop. And the next one was at his house. I think it was at a truck stop. And they were like, hey, like, this is the wrong stuff. And they sent him the wrong paperwork. and then everything blows up, and then we had to come back like 2 weeks later, some crazy stuff like that. So like I know that might be a little bit out of order, but it was the most like convoluted, like red tape bureaucratic process I've ever dealt with in my life, and I think it took at least 5 years off of my life.
But you walked away making 90 grand, yeah?
Yeah. I think the spread difference between take home and the spread. I think the spread was what, like 800,000 minus 560. It was like 200 something thousand, and then we paid like 7 real estate agents. We might have done 1 or 2 of the surveys because like every buyer had an agent, so like 7 agents, all the closing costs and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I think both of us got somewhere. It was like took home about like 90 each, because then I split it in half with Mayor for his expertise and
right. Yeah, man, that is a heck of a story. Matt says Cole's the coolest hippie entrepreneur I've ever seen. Facts, man. We got Ari in the chat saying that's the most entertaining first deal story, bar none, which I would tend to agree. Dude, it's a good reminder, though, like all the creative stuff in land, double closing, entitlement, subdivides, all that stuff. It is very much a who, not how business. I say that all the time. It's all about who, the right title company, the right realtors, the right survey, like whatever it may be. Those third parties can make or break the deal. And oftentimes they break a deal. We've got a subdivide property that we're closing on in Texas. It's supposed to close like 3 weeks ago. They keep on pushing close date back. They sent us the documents last week, all with my name's misspelled in every single document. My LLC's misspelled, all of it's misspelled. We send it back to them. I'm like, come on, guys, fix this. They fix it. They send it back to him. I go and spend $100 on notaries and notarize all of it. I send it back to them. Then we got an email from them yesterday. Oh, it looks like we actually still misspelled your middle name in a few of the parts. I'm like, dude, what the hell? These guys will just push you around, man. They really, unfortunately, don't care. Turns out all we needed was an affidavit that had to be signed. I didn't even need to re-notarize it. They're trying to get me to re-notarize all these documents. One piece of wisdom for everyone here: if you guys are ever using transactional funding on a double close, whatever it may be, never ever wire the money in on a Friday. Never do it. The title company will almost always run you through the weekend, and you'll be paying on the money throughout the weekend. So I never like to send out wires in general on Friday. It's just a high likelihood that they end up pushing the closing back and money sits in escrow. But that really sucks when it's transactional funding. These deals like this, right? If you guys want to unlock crazy profits with not putting much money into the deal, there's a relationship. There's an inverse relationship with how much pain you're going to have to go through. So just understand that. Like, you can use no money out of pocket to do these double closes and whatnot, but you're going to get your teeth kicked in with silliness. And you just pick and choose your battles. Talk to me about what was the most recent deal you did? What was the last deal that you closed in your business?
Let's see. So besides that one, because those closings kind of progressed through most of the year, because at first it was a slow start.
Yeah.
And then one guy, there was a lot of Hispanics who had big families, and one would buy it, and then they're like, let me get another 5 acres for my brother. And then they're like, all right, well, my cousin wants to come in, and they're going to get 10. And they're like, all right, well, that guy's cousin. So I think a lot of them are related, which was pretty crazy. So then it started picking up steam. So I think that was me doing the leaves and stuff and signing the agreement with the seller was like in leaf season last year, so like a year ago, and the last lot finally closed like maybe 2 months ago. Okay. So it was pretty cool, but it was good because it was just kind of like, money throughout the year. The most recent one was these 2 lots in Tennessee, and I was like, this is gonna be crazy. This is gonna be a wild spread, and I was like, it just wasn't really selling. I was getting calls. There was one county that I worked in, and I had 5 lots total, all in the same county. And it was the most calls and texts and talking with people late at night about, just solar powered and if we can do this and that. Like I must have gotten like hundreds of buyers for this, but it didn't turn out to anything. Everyone was like lowballing me on the price. All the agents, it's not worth that. We call that place. I live nearby. We call that Hillbilly Hill. They don't go for very much on Hillbilly Hill, man. If it was not on there, you get that all day. But Hillbilly Hill, dude, it's not going. So basically, everyone was just like putting me through the ringer. I mean, I'll take responsibility. It's my fault, but like they were just like giving me hell. And finally, we did some price drops, sold the 3. There was 2 left, and I was like, these were supposed to be like crazy, like buy for, I think one of them was like buy for 45, sell for 90, and there was like 2 of those. So it was like buy for 90 and sell for double that. I was like, this is gonna be wild. And I didn't get calls. And then eventually, one of the guys who bought one of the other lots that did sell, we did the price drop, that was telling me about Hillbilly Hill. I was like, hey, do you want to like list these other lots? Because nothing's really working. He was like, yeah, those should have sold like really quick. He was like, actually, they're not on my MLS. And I was like, what do you mean they're not on your MLS? He was like, yeah, that's like not showing up. And I used a flat fee listing company, and it turns out for that 135 days or 140 days, they were on the wrong MLS. And that's why I was only getting calls from like people who saw it on like realtor.com or something like that, who like didn't have agents, or it was on some obscure like Trulia, but it wasn't listed on the MLS. After like months and months and months, I was getting enough calls to be like, okay, it's listed, but I wasn't getting like qualified people, and it just like I wasn't getting really any agents. So I was doing a lot of explaining and this and that and trying to give directions, and then the neighbor would take out the for sale sign and put it next to their Jeep Wrangler. Like, and everyone thought I was going to sell the Jeep. I'm not selling the Jeep. Like, no, I'm selling 12.7 acres, lady. So like it did not make any sense. And then like, because it was so long ago that, you know, the little signs that I get my drone person to put out, it's not going to last like a bunch of snowstorms and what have you. So eventually he listed them. He took some pictures, not as cool as my drone pictures, but they had color, and they were like he edited them, whatever. Anyways, there was nothing fancy, and he got like a buyer in like 6 days. And it was like full price offer. And then they wanted to do like a bidding war. And I was like, you know, you kind of get what you pay for. I have had a few bad experiences with these flat fee companies.
Yes,
I was like, now I'm just working specifically with land realtors to sell, unless maybe there's some pockets that I've used the flat fee stuff and it works before. But I think I've had like 3 or 4 deals where something crazy happened, where they like didn't send the people through to me, and we were like waiting on an offer, like, let's get this last lot sold. And then eventually this lady's like, hey, I have a full price cash offer, we want to pay for it. And I was like, hey, like we just accepted one like right below list price. I wish you would have said that before. And she was like, we've been trying to get you for a week. I was like, oh, what are you talking about? He's like, yeah, anyway. So, yeah, so that one, the company did not have it listed in the right spot. And that's why the call volume was so down. And that's why, yeah. So as soon as I used the professional who knew what he was doing, I mean, like totally tore it up. I found him because he was the buyer's agent for another one of my lots that apparently was listed in the right spot, but on the other side of the county, it wasn't. And then he ended up listing it for me, and life got better. So it's a learning experience, you know. It's like you either win or you learn.
Yes.
Maybe you lose, but I learned.
What did you make on all those deals?
I mean, yeah, that wasn't bad. So those 2 lots were 19 grand. So I consider that a win still, instead of like 90 or whatever. I was like, whoa, and then now it's like 19. So that was pretty good. But then the other 3 where we did the price drops, there was not as much meat on the bone, and those ones sold in a little bit sooner. Those were on the right MLS. I think one I got 4 grand, one I got 2,300. Because those were, you know, buy for 14, sell for 28 or 30 or something like that. And there was like a nice river running through it when we took the pictures in the fall. And then everyone in the summertime was like, hey, it's dry. I was like, no, there's a river. And it was just because it was like a wet season one. So yeah, I didn't even think about it. Now I was like, hey, check it out in the dry season if you really want to know. So that kind of affected the value as well. People wanted to actually do like, you know, put an alternator on a car battery or something, and let the water move it and all that kind of stuff. So,
oh man, this is the part of the land business that I love. Every deal has got a story, both of the sellers and the buyers. Man, there's a saga that goes along with all these deals. You bring up a good point, though. Everyone here that's listening, be really careful with the flat fee MLSs. What Cole went through, I've had that happen to me dozens of times, where they'll list it, and like, for example, we used to work in Yavapai County, Arizona all the time. For some reason, we could never get on the MLS there through the flat fee. So it would put us in the Phoenix MLS, which like you do get some eyeballs, but it's not targeted at all. There is a time and a place to use a realtor, and the flat fees don't give you perfect coverage in all MLSs. It's very variable, and the different services out there really vary a ton. So I've had to learn that one the hard way. We've started gravitating to using more realtors in our business. And it's interesting. The deals sell faster. I think a lot of it just because they're listed on the right MLS. Talk to me. What can I help in your business? What's going on that I can kind of unpack or help diagnose?
Right now it's mailers. I'm bringing back texting just because it's worked for me. I know it's not going to last forever. That's why I stopped texting. You know, and that's kind of where my income started dropping, or where the deals came in less consistently. I was like, hey, I'm just going to double down on mailing. You know, I already got all this prepaid stuff I did with Rocket Print. You know, might as well get good at it because texting's not going to be here forever. And then I just was not very good at direct mail, tweaked my copy, so I've been getting more calls lately this past month on some deals. No deals from it yet. But I did the math. I've sent like 15, almost 16,000 mailers with no deals. And it's not even like there hasn't been that many calls either. So something's up. I know it seems very obvious, like, oh, if that happens, the pricing might be off or the copy's bad. But after I switched the copy, it got better, but still no deal. So yeah, it's like 15,500 mailers over the course of a few months
Mm.
where I haven't gotten anything, no money, not even like I haven't dropped the ball on anything to where like I just said something wrong. I just haven't had that many qualified conversations up until this month where I've been switching some more markets and stuff. So that's
Interesting.
definitely been a thing where it's like, I'm like, all right, I'm going to send out, 7,000 mailers. And then it's like, well, I just sent out 4 and it was pretty much like crickets or just like I wasn't getting a whole lot. So then I would get a little bit discouraged. Like, all right, let me just send out, 1,000 this week and see what happens and then build from there. So it kind of chipped away at my marketing momentum as far as getting my pipeline all dialed in. So I've been in
Yep.
my head about that. I know I just need to do more, but I also don't want to just keep doing stuff and have it be like in the wrong direction or doing the wrong thing. So, I mean, I can find if I send it to you after the call or whatever, how I'm pricing it. I'm pretty much, I've tried doing like little smaller subdivisions, not great at it, but most of what I'm doing is, hey, pull a county, either split it into like quarters or thirds and find out like a average price per acre, like 4,500 to 5,000 per acre, or I'll pull like the bulk of a county and I'll put it in a spreadsheet and then I'll sort it by price per acre and all that. And if I find like a good, I guess like median or whatever, I'll be like, all right, so the 5 to 10 acres are selling for 8,000 per acre. The 10 to 20s are selling for, you know, 6,200, and then I'm just like stair stepping it that way just to
Yeah.
try to, and I'll even do the prices a little bit higher on the higher end of it just so I can get more calls and have some conversations and maybe get some better land like pasture instead of, if you do the lower ones, you're always going to get like the wooded lots.
Yep.
I learned that from you. So that's something that I need to like kind of break down, and whether it's, paying you to do some one-on-one or just like sit next to you and like pull markets and mailers and price stuff out just like for like an hour just to like, I don't know, maybe I'll do it in Vegas. I don't know. I'll just figure something out. I just need to like I need to figure that out.
Yeah, man. And here's my recommendation to you. I mean, we all go through campaign slumps, like where 1 month you get 100 leads on 10,000 mailers, the next month you get 30 leads on 10,000 mailers. Like there is a variance there, but 16,000 mailers with no deals and minimal leads, there is like fundamentally an issue there. So this is what I recommend when you get yourself into situations like that. One thing, just as a side note that I've seen folks do, is you can buddy up with LIA members, and I've seen people like hop on a Google Meet and they'll just work through and build mailers together, which I think is kind of interesting. And you just look over each other's shoulders, like, what are they doing? Well, here's what I'm doing. Here's what I was thinking, and just create a really fast feedback loop where you guys go through that together. But here's my recommendation: when mailers are giving you issues, my next step is definitely not to stop mailing, but it's certainly not to continue doing whatever I've been doing. And so if I have a sample size that's that big over months, now I'm going to just start going micro. I'm going to zoom in more. I'm going to zoom in more and more and more, because you can't mess up a 50 record data set of a subdivision or whatever it is. You can't mess that up. It's like, it's so black and white, but there's too many variables. If you're trying to price out Southern Tennessee or this one county in West Virginia, whatever it may be, there's just a lot to account for there. And I find those markets, which the ones that you gravitate towards, are really tricky. Those like Southeast or Northeast, really hilly regions are really, I struggle with those. We've had many mailers to West Virginia where we get 10 deals from 5,000 mailers, and then some where we get literally no leads on that many. And so that would be my recommendation to you is like, okay, let's say you're taking a county and you're breaking it down by acreage or whatever you're using currently. Let's go one step further. Let's zoom in one step further and break those into smaller and smaller bite-sized chunks. If you are methodical and you're going through and pricing 100 records at a time, whatever it may be, you can't really mess that up. But you can certainly mess up a 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 mailer data set. So my next question is, how big is your typical mailer?
I found this out last night. Definitely more than 500. Sometimes like 600 is pretty decent. I'm pulling up Postcard Mini right here. You just give me like 20 seconds to log in. I can actually say them all, and I don't mind if I'm saying some of the markets just because
Yeah,
those
I think
ones
it'll be interesting for everyone here.
haven't really worked.
But they didn't work for Cole, so there's no secret sauce here for you guys to steal.
Right. And there's stuff. Can you see me when I'm not clicked on the screen?
Yeah.
Okay. So basically, and like I was talking with Dennis Yasko about some deals, and he would be like, "Hey, I mailed this market and I just got like 4 deals." And I remember I did one deal in that market, made like 28,000 or something like that in Tennessee, and then I was like, "Oh, cool, that means double down there." And then I sent like another like 6,000, 7,000 mailers out there through the course of the year, or a few months, whatever. I would do a mailer, and I would get like one lead each, couple thousand, and they would just be like, "Screw you." So I was like, "Oh, I did one. Maybe I think I just got lucky." But he was like, "Oh, I just did a bunch of deals there." And then there was the time you were trying to sell that one in like Mineral, Hampshire, and you're like, "I'm done
Yeah.
with here. Like this is so crazy." And then I went in there and I had a lady call me like a couple months after I sent the letter, and she was like, "Hey, I just got out of like the nursing home or the hospital, and your letter was like sitting on my counter, and I want to sell this property. It's got a trailer on it. There was some squatters there. We're not sure if they're still there or not." And I got a local agent to like confirm that they weren't and stuff, and we bought it and sold it. And I think that one, even after the attorney tried to extort like $3,000 after out of me for saying stuff that just wasn't true, I think I still made like 13, 14 grand, and that was in like really close to where you were like, "I'm done with this place." So
Yeah.
everything is very like timing and just not luck, but just like everything's kind of just like you
Yep.
just got to get on at the right time.
Yep.
So here are my mailers, and I combine some just to hit my 500 minimum.
Okay.
So the first ones ever, I just had those labels that. So I was in Tennessee, Monroe and Cott County. Those two counties, I did 1,200. Next one, I did some Tennessee and Virginia. Together, that was 1,000. Because I was doing like 1,000 a week or a little bit more. So this isn't like I'm pulling 1,000 records at once. But if I'm pulling records, it's usually somewhere between, like 400 and like 600, maybe 800. If I pull 1,000 records at one time, I'm like, something's up. That's like way too much.
Yeah.
I'm trying to do
Yeah,
like definitely like 3 to 600 in like a little area and make sure the pricing's right. That's pretty like on par for me if I'm just, and a lot of these areas, I will find consistent pricing. I'm like all day long. This is, 5 to 6,000 per acre. And I got it dialed in when I was doing Central Virginia before I saw the heat map. I was like, let me just do the areas around where I am. And I was like, nothing's happening. But then you look at the heat map and it says it's popping. So if I had something, it would sell really well.
Yeah.
But I think I went in like 5 different counties and did thousands and thousands of mailers, and I got like a couple calls and no deals. But so yeah, Tennessee, I did 1,700 that week, 845, 721. This was a little like neighbor letter, so 300. It was a big neighbor letter. 1,100, 700, 500, 600, 900, 900, 800, 8, 1,000, 8, 500, 1,100, and 1,000. So that was like kind of what I was doing. If that's confusing, my bad. But
No, that's helpful.
Okay.
So the size doesn't seem as big as I expected. That's pretty manageable. Now, in terms of breaking down these data sets to figure out pricing, what are you using? Are you using just like acreage ranges?
So I've done it a couple different ways. I've done where you're on, basically it is acre ranges. Before I would just zoom into an area and try to find consistent pricing, knowing that, hey, in this area, the mountainous stuff or the wooded stuff is going to be, 5 to 7,000 per acre, and the pasture is going to be, 8 to 10. So I would do that and just do that by acreage range. I would just zoom in, try to find consistency on Redfin. Maybe I would do a subdivision and do a couple 50 to 100 records where like the pricing is dialed in. And then I would be like, oh, that hasn't worked for me so far. So let me just go back and zoom out and just try to get some more records. So then I would just do, hey, say this is a county, it's a square, and there's a highway going here and a highway going here. I would never cross the highways. I would just pull that area in between the main highways because I know the pricing might be more consistent. And I would pretty much just divvy up the counties based off of like where the main roads were and try to stay within those. So I'd be like, all right, this, quarter or third of the county, let me zoom in, see what the pricing is, put that on a spreadsheet, and then just do sort it by acreage and try to find like a consistent price per acre. And I mean, I don't know if I can like screen share whatever, but I price.
No, that makes sense. And so that can work, and typically roads are decent separators, but it's not surefire, right? I want
Right.
something that's more. I want the data to tell me where pricing is obviously homogenous. So
Right.
for me, that's why I love going acreage ranges. That's what I'm going to start with first. So let's say I pull a county. I'm just say, cool, Redfin, download all the 5 to 10 acres. Cool, download all the 10 to 20s. And what's that low to high? So let's say it's going from 5,000 to 8,000 an acre, and I remove the outliers. Okay, that's really manageable. Let's say it's going 5,000 to 15,000 an acre. I probably can't price that out consistently. And I'll start toying around. Like, I mean, how many of those larger comps are there? Is there one comp at 15 and everything else is grouped 5 to 7? So you also got to look at the groupings. But I want to kind of keep that low to high, ideally under 100% difference. So 5 to 10,000 an acre, I can deal with that, right? So I'll always start acreage range. I just find that to be the easiest. I'll just keep on chunking. But it doesn't always work. Sometimes I'm looking at the acreage ranges and I'm like, geez, Louise, this is all over the place. Well, I could look on Redfin and I could see, well, it looks like most of the high-end comps are clustered here and most of the low-end comps are clustered here. Maybe you could add a polygon to that, right? So always start acreage range. Don't start creating these inferences on like, oh, I'm going to draw a polygon here because this road. We just don't know. We need the data to tell us where that grouping is of pricing. That can happen, but it's not always the case.
I would do the acreage ranges after the highway thing. So I wouldn't just do the highways. That's how I would just kind of narrow it in a little bit. Instead of a subdivision, I would just be like between these highways, then I'll do it per acre on a spreadsheet.
Okay. I would, unless it's glaringly obvious, I think I would avoid doing that.
Okay.
You can just get yourself in a bit of a quagmire where you're making too many assumptions. Like, we want this to be as binary as possible. It's not always going to be, but
Sure.
ideally the data should lead us to where we need to go. The other thing is when you're looking at those comps, you can look at zip codes. So are a lot of those high-end comps grouped in the same zip code or low-end comps grouped in the same zip code? You can use zip code as a way to kind of like almost have preset polygons and price off of zip codes. It can be harder for rural recreational stuff. We were just talking about that on the call last night. But if you're more like in the infill-ish territory, that can be a little bit easier. But this is just like one fundamental thing. And this is, I'm talking from my experience. So there's many people out there that can kind of counter my experience. The Southeast is the hardest area to price, in my opinion. And there's no place I hate more than like Virginia, the Carolina. Like, those markets are so difficult to price. It is like the major league of pricing mailers. Now, there's many folks inside LIA that kill it. I mean, like, look at how many deals Dennis has got out in the Carolinas and stuff. So it does work. I just find it to be a lot more difficult. So I'd be mindful of that. I would also be mindful of all these markets because I think you're drawn to a certain kind of land just for what you like. Go look at a lot of those counties. How much topography is there in those counties? Where there's topography, I get very, very nervous to start pricing off of acreage ranges. It just becomes way, way, way too difficult. So those areas, I'm going to try to go and just break it down by subdivisions. Or there's certain markets where I literally can't use a blind offer unless I want to spend a decade trying to figure it out. So I'll just throw in range offers. That's another thing. You can give yourself a lot more latitude with that. And your response rate is going to go up with range offers, which it sounds like you don't have a conversion problem since you have a lead problem. But these are trickier markets, right? So here's what I would encourage. Let's always start with acreage ranges. Let that be the canary in the coal mine. If that doesn't work, let's just zoom in. Let's not draw any polygons kind of on a whim. If the data is telling us, cool, you can draw a polygon. Like, I would encourage you to have you used Google My Maps for pricing?
I watched the video. It got kind of confusing.
It's a little confusing to set up, but I think that would serve you very well, or you can have a VA do that, because that's going to visualize your data, the data tree data, and the comps, and it's going to overlay it. And so that just becomes like, it just becomes undeniable. It's just very like in your face. And that way you're not guessing on, should I draw a polygon here? Should I not draw a polygon? So like Rylan, the way he builds out his mailers, I don't think he does this as much anymore, but he'd just have himself or someone on his team go grab all the data for whatever Costilla County and the comp data, and then he'd start polygoning it through that information because it's just so populated and easy to see. But dude, the thing is, like, if we look at all the mailers in our business, the vast majority of them, I never really have to deviate from acreage range. It's very, very rare for us. We'll sprinkle in some subdivisions, and that's pretty much the majority of what we do. But I'm very critical. If the market does not going to fit my kind of acreage range style of pricing, I'm pretty much out. And that usually excludes some counties, not all counties, but some counties in the Southeast. Those markets are just really difficult. Have you done anything that's more in the Midwest, Southwest, anything like that?
In the beginning, I was doing, Arizona. I tried to price out like Idaho, Montana, and then it would just be, 5 acres goes for 200,000, and then right next door, like literally, it would be like 5 acres goes for 60 grand, and it would be on market, and it would just be like a slight difference, like it was weird, just like a couple streets over, there'd be like a $200,000 difference, and it would be the same acreage, and like some of them would be understood, so it got kind of convoluted. The most consistent stuff I've done that hasn't worked has been Central Virginia, like Louisa, Powhatan, Goochland, Buckingham, Appomattox, like all those places.
Hard markets.
Like, so those would just be straight wooded, maybe some pasture.
Yep.
And I could dial in because I would be like, damn, that market bombed, like that mailer bombed. Let me go check the pricing. And I would look at the pricing and it'd be spot on. And I would do a range of, maybe for one county, it would be, 5,500 to 6,000 per acre. I don't know if there's the actual price, but just random number.
Yeah.
And I could see very clearly that that's what it would go for wooded land. And I still wasn't getting a response. And there was no topography there. And I just made sure that I wasn't doing like the HOA subdivisions and stuff for like, because for example, was it Louisa? Powhatan County. It's very rural, but there's a bunch of subdivisions because it's only 30 minutes outside of town. And they would take like a year to sell, but all the unrestricted stuff would do like super quick. So there's a couple of those where it's pretty flat, but still, and my pricing was good. It was like comparative to like what I would see on the comps, and it still didn't work. But yes, there also is some stuff where I was in Tennessee and where it'd be valleys and then like a mountain. And then whenever there's a lake involved, that is weird. So I don't mess with that anymore. If there's like mountains and a lake, I'm not touching it.
Yeah, you know better. Do you, when you're going and pulling these comps, do you remove all the outliers?
I do. Yeah. So, for example, I'm looking at one right now where I can see a similar price per acre. And I'm not going to say every single one, but I can see that 8 acres to 32 acres, right? It's between 3,600 and like 6,600, right? And maybe there's one at 10 grand and one at 1,500, but they're all within there. And then I would zoom in even further, right? So I wouldn't send out a range for there. So for example, from 17 acres to 33 acres, the average when I do the calculation is 4,500 per acre, right? So 8 acres to 16 acres averaged out on the spreadsheet is 5,200 per acre, right? And I would take out the outliers.
Are
So
you
I
using
did
an
that.
average or the median?
So basically, I'm highlighting, say, 4 things, divide by 4.
Yeah, so that's an average. Averages can be very misleading. You got to be careful with averages, and that can really screw up your pricing too. So go for the median, the number that's in the middle, right? That's
Okay.
I think it's a better indicator of like an honest view of value, because what you do see is there is a lot of variability for land comp. So when you take 5,000 acre, 15,000 acre, and you blend those together, you can get bizarro numbers that just aren't real. And there's an old saying: you walk into a bar, Bill Gates walks in after you. What's the average net worth of the room? Well, everyone's a multi-millionaire, but are you really? It's like, no. So I find that averages will screw you up on pricing faster than just about anything else. So I would avoid averages like the plague. I would also go look at those low and those high comps and actually go look at the listing. There's a lot of junk where you're like, I'm not buying this kind of land, so just get it out of your comping process, because it's just noise. And one of the things that I like to look at too, I don't even know what the best explanation would be. There's probably some technical term for this, but like groupings. So like, let's say there's like, hey, there's 3 comps at 4,000 an acre. There's 20 comps at 7,000 an acre. And then there's 3 high comps at 15,000 an acre. Well, what's really most relevant? You take the average of that, you're starting to get screwy numbers. That tight grouping is the most relevant, in my opinion, where there's actually like the highest concentration of comps. There's probably a technical term for that, but that's a big clue for me of what's going on there. So that's why averages can get you super screwed up. I'd be very, very careful with averages. In fact, I would just remove that from your process entirely. I think there's 3 things happening here if I had to diagnose. And again, it's hard doing it sight unseen.
Right.
But you are personally biased to markets that are the most difficult in this business because you like land and because you live in those areas, or roughly.
Right.
That's kind of your stomping ground. Let's try to not be dogmatic with the markets we pick for what we actually like. Let's just kind of sidestep that temporarily.
Okay.
I think averages for your pricing is just going to get you crossed up on what you really think values are.
Right.
And the third thing is like the kind of arbitrary polygons. Like, let the data guide you for how you have to chunk up or chop up that market. So again, roads can split value, but they also don't sometimes, and what's also happening is you're missing out on other good data that you could market to. But dude, I have a recommendation for you.
Okay.
I would go through, I'd look at all your successful mailers, the mailers that brought home the bacon. Was there any commonalities there? Was it a number of data points in there? Was a commonality? Was the kind of market? Was the how you priced? Like, what was it? Was there a commonality there? It sounds like you've got more bad ones than good ones. So the bad ones, you could look at those too, but it sounds like the good ones are going to be like the most valuable in terms of informing us. The next thing is I would either start really getting very granular with how you're breaking up these markets. So if you're finding yourself breaking these things up by county, break them up by zip code, break them up by subdivision. Let's just take a step closer to getting more zoomed in. And potentially you could just start doing range offers. You got to get in where you fit in, right? If data is not your strong suit, pricing out blind offers all day long might not have the highest ROI. Even though I love blind offers, range offers might suit you better. It's going to give you a lot more flexibility on price. It's also going to give you more leads opting in, which right now it sounds like, again, it's not a conversion problem. It's just a lead problem. So that might
Correct.
play in your favor.
And I have done a lot of range. This is the market I priced out just alongside Jay from the group, just because he was like, hey, consistent pricing. Didn't really get a response, so I just did it to test, to be like, hey, I'm going to do it. You're going to do it. And we had pretty consistent pricing between the two of us. There was a little bit of differences, but I just wanted to price a market next to someone and see what happened. So like, I'm just going to highlight 4 little comps right here from Redfin. This is 17 to 23 acres. It's 4,600 per acre, 3,700, 34, and 43, right? So 46, 37, 34, and 43. And then I just came up with the average instead of the median of 4,500 per acre, right? And sometimes I'll add a little bit more just to put it at the upper tier. Do you think that that's the wrong way to do it because I'm not doing like the middle?
No, it's okay. I mean, again, in a case like that, you're probably going to be fine. I mean, I would still encourage just sort those low to high and take the median. Just kind of build that in as a habit for yourself. But in a situation like that, the average isn't going to get you screwed up because there's not a huge delta from low to high comp. The rub with that situation, though, if I were to pick holes in it, there's only 4 comps, right? So can we get more data there? If we're going to try to comp out even a sub-market off 4 comps, that's a little tricky. So can I zoom out in terms of time and find older comps? Can I look at on-market comps and apply a discount rate to those? We need more than 4 data points,
I've got 56. I just found those 4 in the list. I could share my screen, but just because they were all similar numbers, that it just made sense.
Yeah, 56 is fair. Tell me this though, in that 56 comps, what's the lowest comp and what's the highest comp?
So the lowest, and I've got all the acreage range. So I've got 3 acres to 120, but really the top is like 65 acres.
Well, why not break those up?
That's what I'm going to do, just because
so
you said that.
Just for the sake of really clean math, though, what I like to do is like when you're on Redfin, just download the 3 to 5s. Have that as its own spreadsheet. Download the 5 to 5. Just really get them very, very granular. Don't have them in the same sheet. Same thing. If I'm pricing out that county, all those acreage ranges are going to have their own sheet. You'll just get like fuzzy with the math if it's all hodgepodge together.
Right. That makes sense. And I did do I'm going to do yours because it's just even cleaner. But I would try to find commonality in the price breakers and then just do like a little line in the middle and just divide it so I could see, and it might not be 5 to 10, but it might be 4 to 12. I see consistent pricing, but I'm going to do it your way just because it makes more sense the way you said it.
Yeah. And with the acreage stuff too, if you can find a tighter grouping, that's always going to play in your favor, and understand that if the 4 to 12 acres look like they're priced the same, they're not priced the same. That's a data problem. So if you're pricing out the 4 to 12s, understand as you move up into the 12s, you will have to slide down price a little bit. Even if the data is telling you not to, the data is lying. There's just not enough data points there. So you can find situations where the data is really thin and you're looking at 5 to 20 acres. And it's like, oh, they're all priced the same. They're really not in reality. So you want to kind of like stagger that down. There's no exact math to it, but you could just slide, 1%, 2% for every acreage that you go up, or whatever it may be.
Right.
That will help as well. So even if the data is telling you that this big swath of land is priced the same, always apply some kind of discount rate as you're getting up into the higher acreage ranges, right? I would also, I guess the one thing too is like your marketing copy. I think we've looked at your letter before. I didn't see anything that was glaringly wrong with it. I don't know if you've changed it substantially since then, have you?
Not substantially, but I did take out some stuff just to make it more to the point and just take out some filler stuff. So I shortened it. I did put a client testimonial in big letters in the middle of it, so that was pretty cool. But yeah, I made it better. I'm getting a better response rate after changing it.
You got better response rates after changing it?
I'm getting more calls after changing it, and also just
Okay, cool. Yeah, I mean, I think for these campaigns, if you're using a 2-page letter, I always want to fill up both pages. So you don't want to babble on and on, but you do want to make sure you're utilizing the space. Make sure you have a color logo on the top. That seems to really help with response rate. So have a logo, tell Rocket Print Mail, make that logo in color. Make sure you have a little actual hand-drawn signature. Make sure you have your contact information, multiple points on that first page. You want to show up multiple places. This is how you get in contact with me over and over and over again. Like literally guide them to getting in touch with you. Ensure that like the acceptance date isn't too far out. 60, 90 days, something like that. So you're giving them some sense of urgency to reach out. I haven't seen an appreciable difference with that, but it doesn't hurt. But yeah, man, I mean, this is to me, this is probably all hands on deck. This is where all my mental resources would be going, is to solve this, because there is something going wrong here. It is normal to have some mailers not work, but not that many mailers, not for that long of a period. What's crazy is yet you're still profitable. That's the crazy thing about this business, is you can botch your mailing and still make money. But you should, I mean, a very, very easy KPI to hit, if you can call sellers back on time, 2,500 to 2,000 letters per deal. You should certainly be able to maintain that. So yeah, man, range offers, spread yourself out. Let's go try some new markets. Let's get out of that whole area that you've been hyper fixated on. Remove the averages, zoom in. If we start running with that, report back to me in 30 days. Or I mean, we might need a little longer, call it 60 days. You should see a pretty stark difference.
And I think I'm going to find someone in the group to just like find a bunch of markets that we're maybe not going to mail, or maybe I do this one, you do that one, but we price them out together just to like get the reps in if they are.
For sure. I think it's a great idea. I would go into the LIA channel, just put a Discord message in there, just like, hey, who wants to hop on a call this week or a Google Meet, and like just price out mailers together. There's so many folks that would be on board with that. I think it's just a great idea. Like, dude, back in the day, so Michael was one of our early coaching students, Michael Bull. Him and I would go to a coffee shop together. We'd price out mailers for 3 hours. And we learned so much because everyone does something slightly different. And there's always takeaways to be had. But dude, this has been a great call, man. I know we've been here for almost an hour and a half. I really appreciate your time. And it seems like the folks inside the chat had a ball here and love hearing your stories. What would you say to someone that's thinking about getting started in land or joining LIA? What would be your words of wisdom?
Man, I mean, I'm not always known as the person with like the biggest vision. I have ideas and stuff, but you definitely have like, it's like, you gotta want it, but like you can't. It's not like a get rich quick thing to where it's not, nothing's guaranteed. You just have to have faith. You have to put yourself in a position where you have some money that you're not afraid to lose, right? You just have to look at it as a tool to just get you in the game, and then you got to learn how to play. So probably don't use your last $2,000 on some mailers and say this has to work. Maybe use that money to partner up with somebody, or pay for like a course or education, and pretty much like invest in yourself. So I would just save up a little nest egg if you're going to do your own marketing, or maybe you're partnering up with other people. But yeah, just you have to commit to it. It's very easy to be like in your other job and say, oh, well, this isn't working out well. I'm just going to go do some taxes real quick and, get my check for $1,500 and then you know what I'm saying? You have to just like, I'm stopping my landscaping because I know even at this time, like in the market and also just like in general, like the uncertainty, that this is what I want my life to look like. I need this to like be my everything. So I'm investing everything into it. So if you're just getting into it, save up as much money as you can, and then put some to the side that you're not afraid to lose, but also treat it like what it is, that it's valuable. Hey, I don't want to lose this. I'm going to trial and error this. Maybe I'll split test something, see what works. And then eventually, after enough trial and error, you're going to find something that does work. And then that's what you double down on. But then when you get your first couple deals, don't go blow it on a new car, because you need to invest that into your company. Because if you blow it on the car and then one of your mailers bombs, then you don't have any money and you got to go work at McDonald's again and save up $8 an hour at a time. So definitely like keep what you make and just keep turning that over until you're really, really confident in like your numbers and your KPIs and all the stuff that I'm still learning. But yeah, it wouldn't hurt to have like your regular job or your business going, and just know that, hey, I'm going to put this percentage of the paycheck into the business until it does start showing returns. But don't put the money in and think just because you spent money that you're going to make money. It has to be like a targeted approach, right? I could just send out, oh, let me just do 5,000 mailers, right? And maybe they're not priced exactly right. And I'm like, oh, I got the money to spend. Well, maybe do like 2,000 that are priced really well, type of thing. Don't just think because there's a dollar amount that you're investing in yourself. You're not investing just because you spent money. It has to actually be going towards like the right thing.
Yeah, man. Lots of good stuff to unpack there. I mean, I think the takeaway is, I made a video on this on YouTube yesterday. It's like we all learn through feedback loops. Either the marketplace is your feedback loop or some form of coaching, more so than a course. I think courses, everything's in a vacuum, is pretty static. But you need some way to iterate and test. What I always tell folks is like, this is not a get rich quick scheme. This isn't like a quit your job tomorrow type thing. This is a slow, long game, but it's a guaranteed way to get rich. I guarantee you, if you stick around long enough and you do the right things, you will become wealthy in running this business. It's just a matter of time. I think that I can get anyone to quit their job in a year. I think I take me a Joe Blow off the street. I can make you full-time in a year, but typically never before then. And then what's going to be required in that year is every dollar you're making from this business, you're putting back in. I didn't see a dollar from this business for like a year and a half, 2 years. But when you have a machine that can 10x your money every time it goes back into it, it's like, dude, stuff everything you own into that thing, but it won't happen overnight. But I would take a sure thing over like I don't know if it's going to work. I like sure things. And this is as close to a sure thing as you can get. So anyways, man, I'm excited to see you out here in 2 weeks out here in Vegas. You have to keep me in the loop with how everything goes on these mailers. And yeah, man, any parting words for the folks here?
The other part, new advice for people that I can't believe I forgot. It's collaboration over competition, right?
Yeah.
You'd rather have half of a watermelon than all of a grape. So watermelon's bigger. If I was in a scarcity mindset, thinking that, oh, this is my first big deal, I got to keep all the spread, like what is da-da-da, like, you're here to learn. So like, I'm fine. Even if we're splitting a deal like a couple ways, or you paid more money for just like, you just have to be willing to put the reps in. And not saying that like you do a bad JV where you get nothing, but you just have to know that's like in the entrepreneurial business space, you've got a big chunk of money and you just got to split it up different ways. So collaboration over competition to help me in this business, partnering with some folks. It helped me in my last business when someone called, hey, we want to put it in a patio. Okay, I don't know how to do that, but we collaborated and we both made money. So like, anyways, that's a big thing. And yeah, if you're ever interested on seeing my travels and possibly living in a teepee or anything like that, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Barefoot Appalachia. And I don't know if I'll ever do land stuff on there, but it's probably going to be more of like the personal adventures and stuff. And maybe you'll see me like sitting next to a wood stove in the snowy mountains, just like sending out some mailers or something. You know what I'm saying? So Barefoot Appalachia, check me out. If you need any help with land stuff, obviously Sumner's the guy to talk to. And yeah, if you're thinking about joining it, it helped me. There's a lot of courses and kind of stuff that I've looked at throughout the years. And a lot of it is, bigger guru guys who already have so much money to where they're like, oh, people are going to pay me because I have this name. And then, some people will pay 30, 40 grand just because they're like, oh, well, I have so much money. I don't really need it. I'll charge 40 grand, then I'll do it. But where Sumner's at, how many subscribers you have on YouTube? Not that many in the grand scheme of things, but I think you have a lot of like high quality subscribers that are like, you don't need 200,000 people because you might have like, I don't know, 5 or 10,000 or whatever on your YouTube. But the people who join the group is like a really high conversion rate and it's all high quality stuff. So where I was going with that is I think Sumner's just group and expertise and all that is a really good value right now because you're not Ty Lopez yet. You know what I'm saying? Because if you were, you would charge like $100,000 or something like that. So that's why like I have talked to a lot of people who have spent the 50 grand, the 80 grand. It's like crazy. So I think going with you has been a really great value just because it just is. So I've seen a lot of courses. I've spent, 8 grand on a course before. And this by far has been the one that has worked the best, made me money. You're not paying me to say this, but just like honest to God, I paid a lot more money for stuff that, it was just too big. Get in early. Right? Because it's going to be more one-on-one, more of a community feel when it's not 50,000 people in the group. Because at that point, it's really easy to get lost in the sauce. And there'd be 10 Zoom calls per day. And you don't know how to actually send out mailers because you're just worried about getting on the next Zoom call. So then you get all excited. Oh, I got on the Zoom call. You're not making any money. So don't get to, that's going to be a waste. Right now, a couple of Zoom calls a week. It's all you need. And I'm a big fan of it.
Thank you, brother. That means a lot, man. Seriously, I appreciate that. Appreciate everyone sticking around. Seems like everyone loved hearing your story. Again, Barefoot Appalachia, if you want to stay in touch with Cole's adventure. He is really living the land lifestyle on all levels. Well, much love, man. I appreciate you stopping by. I'll see you here in 2 weeks. Everyone here, take care. Bye, guys.
Yeah.